As a young boy growing up, we grew up on Bruce Lee's movies. Our exposure to the outside world was movies. And Hollywood became the biggest advertiser for the American dream. We all grew up believing that everything is possible in America, irrespective of color, creed, or race. We've all thought that America's biggest export is innovation. But most of us forget the fact that America's biggest export is culture. America makes more money from selling music than anything else. Hollywood sells the dream. Now, this brings us to today's discussion about what is culture. How relevant is culture? When I talk to the young black kings in the gym, and we talk about culture, most of them will always say that I don't want anything to do with the African culture, that our culture is archaic. But my response is always easy. Culture is not static. Culture is progressive. So in the studio today, I've got my brother here that we want to discuss African culture. How does our culture make who we are?
I have to be very cautious and choose my words carefully. I'll explain why. I'm a radical by nature. I didn't choose to be a radical. It turns out that how I see things was defined as radical. And so I will put it to you that any proud African should be saying that in the year 2025, we don't have African culture. We have symbolic dress wear, song, talk, but we actually don't have what we can call a culture. Why would I say that? I would, very simply, if you are being educated and the standard was set outside of yourself, if you are praying and the prayers are set outside of yourself, if you have a legal system and the legal system is set outside of yourself, in fact, let me say it in reverse. Let's start with the legal system. What is the law? The law by nature should be the expression of the culture. So when you say you have a legal system, it must be a system that imposes, protects, and guards the culture. So if in Africa we have Roman Dutch law, which culture are we protecting? Which culture are we preparing the law for? Let's start there. And then if we are praying, and the prayer is located primarily outside of us, it means our prayer is not a reflection of our culture. If when children go to school, and I had this problem in school. I'm an avid, I didn't like school, but I loved the subject matter. So I didn't like the environment. We would get into a history class and would open Europe, because they would split it into European history, African history. The European history part would say, this was happening, it was called Bloody Sunday. It happened on Sunday, and they would write a whole chapter about Sunday or Tuesday. And then you'd open an African history textbook, and the history textbook will begin, and it's one chapter written there. Same size chapter, but the chapter at the top of the heading, it will say from 13 something to 17 something. And it will be a chapter. And I quickly looked at this and had a problem with it. To say, I cannot talk about Tuesday when I'm talking about 100 years in the same amount. So even our education system deculturized us. We are now left in Africa with an empty culture, a symbolic culture. So I don't want to call it a culture. We are left with symbolism where there was culture. I think that is my answer to you. In Africa, we've just been left with symbolism where there was once culture.
So answering that, I remember, I think I'm going to narrow this down and bring it to manhood for me. Remember in my culture, we have to go through a process. There's steps that you have to follow for you to become a man.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those is growing up, the man you look up to, the biggest, most strong man that you want to become, aspire to become, is your father,
Mm-hmm.
your uncles,
Mm-hmm.
and in most cases also your grandfather.
Yes.
Now, I remember vividly at the age of 8, 9, in the middle of the night, they come with a flashlight, they yank you out of bed, and they shine that spotlight in your face. And you can hear the voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's either your father's,
Mm-hmm.
your grandfather's,
Mm-hmm.
or your uncle's. And they ask you a very simple question. Do you want to become a man? What do you think your answer will be?
It has to be yes.
Of course, it's
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at that point, they'll yank you out of that bed. They'll tell you tomorrow morning, the circumciser is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the process is started.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're talking about culture,
Mm-hmm.
from my understanding. 6 in the morning, they line you up in the boma. That's where we stay. You and the boys of the same age.
Mm-hmm. The regiment.
Yeah. Now, they'll pull your pants down, and you have other men behind you, and the older men are standing in front of you. And on one side is all the women, including your mother and all your sisters. And you'll hear the drum beat, and that means the circumciser is coming. Now, you've given 2 conditions. 1, you should not cry. 2, you should not flinch. Because if any of those 2 things happen, you're not going to go through with the ceremony. The guy comes dressed in leopard skin. He'll dance and run around you with his sharp blade to try and scare you. You have to stand and face him. Then he'll come, he'll hold you, and he'll cut it. Now, the minute they've cut it, without crying or without shaking, at that point, when they stop the bleeding, you step forward. Now, you're told if you cry or you flinch, straight away, you and your family are going to be kicked out of the village. Now, most people will always say that is very barbaric, but that's the first sign where they're showing you to become a man. To become a man, you have to take the responsibility of everybody else. It's just not about you.
Mm-hmm.
So you step forward and you declare. You look your mom in the eye and you say loudly, from today henceforth, I'm not going to eat any food that is prepared by a woman's hands. Now, remember, this is now transition. Mm-hmm. It means I'm stopping being a consumer. Mm-hmm. I'm becoming a producer now.
A provider.
I'm a provider.
Powerful.
Now, they take you from there, then you guys go to the mountain. Mm-hmm. You go to the mountain with all the elders, the older boys. Your fathers will visit you there, the grandfathers will visit every single day. There's a single ceremony. And then when you finished, that day, the minute you finished, they'll give you a bull. Now you have to slaughter this bull. Mm-hmm. Now you have to take the biggest part of this bull, which is in most cases the back hind leg, mm-hmm. and you have to give it to your mother. Now showing for the first time, the minute I become a provider, you're the first person that I'm going to look after. That's the same thing you find most boys nowadays, when they get their first job, what do they do with their money? They buy a cell phone, they buy shoes. Those traditions are gone.
At home, I took mine to my father. I put it down.
Salary.
Yes.
Yeah. You see, so those are the cultures things that we shouldn't let go. Mm. So you give that to your mother, but the condition here is After you've slaughtered this bull and everybody comes to feast, who has to eat the less? You. And then you have to start acquiring other bulls. Now, there's a lot of lessons there that most of us have lost. One, you stop being a consumer, you become a producer. Two, manhood is defined where we've lost it as black men is acquisition of wealth, because you need to be able to provide. And thirdly, where all of a sudden you have to start acquiring more cows, because you cannot provide without. And we've lost that in a way. We've lost that in a way. That's where you see Africa. It is a continent with so much resources, but it's other people that are milking it. One of the things that I remember my father telling me clearly is whoever feeds your kids is their father.
Yes. You said another lesson, and I don't want to miss it. It's exceptionally powerful. You said, you feed everybody, and you only eat what is left as a man after you slaughter the cow. It's your cow, you slaughter it, and you give most of it away. The biggest problem we have now is that men are not prepared to sacrifice. And it's in small things. And it's in small things. You won't believe in how many households the man gets the biggest plate. Fundamentally, broken system. How are you feeding your dying end and not feeding your living end more? It makes no sense why a father gets the biggest plate. The youngest child must get the biggest plate, at least as much as they can eat. And it must go on like that. Because you are the man. That is the responsibility. And it is always the quickest way I see the type of man I'm with. Is when he eats the most, when he drives the best car, when he has the most. So I say, oh, okay, that's who he is. I'm from a place where you'll see a man driving a van, and you won't believe that that Range Rover is his, because you've never seen him drive it, because you've seen his wife, you've seen his children in it. You've never seen him in it, because he has no business in it. His business is to take this van, load it, and go and bring back things for them. And he does it diligently every day. The fact that they're in a luxury car and they're enjoying themselves is his pride and joy. We have a culture now where men have forgotten that their pride is not on them. They want to wear their pride. Their pride is, your pride is your wife and your children.
But you see, that's where culture fails us most. It's our political system.
We have promoted